Welcome back to the Angry Man Podcast with Jason and Greg. So, Jay, this is the second time we've seen one of the four kings move up to 140 pounds and look dominant. When we talk about the four kings, we're talking about those four gentlemen that were at 135 pounds. Those gentlemen were Gervonta Davis, Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, and Ryan Garcia. Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney have moved up to 140 pounds, and two of the biggest dogs at 140, they moved up and absolutely dominated. Teofimo dominated Josh Taylor. Devin Haney dominated Regis Prograis. And there were a lot of talk and speculation just several months ago. I'm talking about within the last 12 to 18 months where we didn't really know if these guys were really all that good because they weren't fighting each other. That was out there. And a lot of people are going to say that wasn't out there, but that was absolutely out there. That maybe these guys aren't what we think they are because none of them are fighting each other. So how do we know if they're actually that good? And now I think with last night's performance for Devin Haney, we have our answer. Those guys at that weight class were absolutely great fighters, or absolutely are great fighters. Now you can make the argument, and some will make this argument that Josh Taylor, Regis Prograis in that 140 pound division, they were overhyped, and maybe that's possible too. I don't know. You have to, with new information, we can come to a different conclusion. But at the point in which those two individuals fought each other, Josh Taylor and Regis Prograis, they were the two top fighters in that weight class. We thought that they were legitimately really good fighters. Josh Taylor was actually in the pound for pound discussion not so long ago, at least on the outside of the pound for pound discussion. Some had him in the late, maybe like 9 or 10 or right outside of it. But regardless, these guys were highly regarded. And now we just saw both of these guys get absolutely destroyed. Again, Regis Prograis was just considered the boogeyman of 140 pound division. That is not too long. That's within the last 10, 12 months. So we gotta give props to these guys. We'll see what Ryan Garcia does in his next fight. I never thought that highly of Ryan Garcia, even though he was considered one of those four kings. But Teofimo is looking at fighting. Teofimo just literally offered Matias a fight. That's big because Matias is avoided and Teo is going after him. So those guys are really proving themselves in terms of what they are. And I can't wait to see what's next for them. And we need to see those guys fight each other. We saw Tank versus Ryan, but we still need to see Teo in the ring with these guys. We need to see Devin in the ring. We need to, at this point, Shakur as well. He's in that fold as well. So, what do you think is next? What do you think is next for these gentlemen? 135 pounds, and do you agree that they really are the goods? And they've demonstrated that over the last couple of fights, just with the Teo and the Devin performances.
I'll say 3 out of the 4 have. I mean, Ryan Garcia had a good fight, his last fight, but Ryan was beaten and dominated by Tank. I would probably throw Shakur in there and replace with Ryan because Ryan has a less of a resume, overall. He's never been a champion. Shakur has. So I always thought that taking Ryan out, replacing him with Shakur, or just adding a fifth, or it'd be like spades, 4 and a possible. For the four kings for him. But no, Teo has done his thing. He came back from the stinker he had against Sandor Martin, coming back off of a loss to Cambosos. He handled business at 140. To your point, we don't know, what's Josh old, but Josh had kind of been exposed against Jack Catterall because most people felt that Jack Catterall won that fight against Josh Taylor. So we knew Josh was was vulnerable. We also knew that Josh was killing himself to try to make 140. But Teo put on a massive performance against him regardless. 140 or 147, I think he would beat Josh Taylor anyway just because he outboxed him. He did whatever he wanted to in that ring with Josh. Regis was the same. We thought Regis had bounced back from that Josh Taylor in a close loss to Josh Taylor, something he may have won that fight. I thought he may have eked it out against Josh Taylor back then. But he looked bad against his last fight against Zorilla. And then against Devin, he just absolutely got shut out. 12-0, on most people's cards, mine as well, with a knockdown. Yep. So those two are definitely handling business. I mean, Devin has definitely gone far beyond, I would say, anyone else by taking on bigger threats than the other two have. Teo definitely, they both fought Loma, but Devin went up to 140, his first fight at 140, and fought, the boogeyman and handled business. I know Tio beat the guy who beat the boogeyman, but they fought each other some years back. That was still controversial. Tio dominated Josh, but the way Devin dominated Regis was just crazy to me. I didn't see it happening to that degree. And Tank, well, we know what Tank can do. Tank has fought probably a lesser of the tops of the other two between Tio and Devin right now, but I think Tank has just as much boxing IQ. We definitely know he has the power. We definitely have the power, and we definitely know he's the cash cow of those guys there. So they're definitely footing the bill. Ryan came out, had a good win his last fight, good stoppage against a fighter that can crack. He handled business. I don't know what the hell that banana roll, dinner roll, what he was trying to do in that fight there, but he shouldn't do that ever again. But we gotta see what he's going to do. He still has to prove himself. He's the only one of the three that's never had that's never had a real belt.
Yeah.
So we gotta see what he does next in his future fights. On that, then gotta keep Shakur. Shakur's in the rearview mirror. Although he had a stinger in his last fight, Shakur definitely has the goods. He handled business at 130, and I believe at 126 as well. So now he's at 135. He has a belt. We'll see what goes on for him at 135. But yeah, I mean, they're living up to the hype. I give them all the credit in the world. Those guys are living up to the hype, and they're continuously producing. We just want to see them continuously produce, and we want to see them fight each other more. I can't say Devin's fault, Loma, Devin's fault, Regis, Devin's fault, Camboso's. I'm not putting Cambosos up there in the top 5 or nothing like that, but he went across the pond twice, beat him, took his stuff, and brought it back to the States. So that's big ups for Devin on that. Beat Loma, regardless how y'all feel, he beat Loma. Tio beat Loma. Tio had a loss to Cambosos and had a questionable win against Sandor Martin. Dev has had that type of stuff against lower competition. Sandor Martin is a decent fighter, but he's not in the upper echelon. So that's a questionable win for Tio. But Tio bounced back greatly against Josh Taylor. So that was good for him. But we're going to see, man. Those guys are definitely handling business, and going to see what happens later on at 140 because they're going to meet up. They got to meet up. Tio got a belt. Devin got a belt. Ryan's at 140. Ryan wants a belt. They got to meet up in 2024. Some iteration of those 3 or 4. When you add Tank, Tank has to fight one of them or Shakur.
Yeah. We'll see what ends up happening. Those gentlemen, they definitely need to make it happen at 135 or 140. I'm definitely interested in seeing it. I think there's going to be further delineation and separation in terms of those fighters, because if Teofimo Lopez goes in and beats Matias, then that's a feather in his cap in terms of his overall resume. And now you're really comparing the resume of Devin Haney versus Teofimo Lopez if that were to happen. Gervonta Davis, I think he has a solid resume, but I think at this point, with Devin going up and dismantling Regis Prograis, I think at this point Devin's resume is ahead of Gervonta Davis's resume. Now, does that mean anything in terms of who makes the fight and who's in control of making the fight? Absolutely not. But you would have to give the edge to Devin at this point in terms of overall resume, because Devin is doing some things that Tank just hasn't done yet, and really Tank doesn't have to do, because Tank is overall the cash cow in and around that division, so he doesn't have to do all these little things in order to generate that money. But still, we want to see the greatness of Gervonta Davis, and we want to continue to see him elevate himself and challenge himself in the sport of boxing. Jay, anything else that you want to share before we go on to the next?
Nah, completely agree with you.
You guys tell us what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to hate, like, comment, and subscribe. This is the Angry Man Podcast, AM Sports Media, and we are out.